Alright, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tadodayam Udiraye Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of God, the right, to Narada, to Mother Saraswati, by regular attendance in classes of the Bhagavatam, by rendering yourselves to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. Loving yourselves to the personality of God, which praise and transcends sound, established in the literal. So it says, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. Isn't that a relief? Think about the many things that trouble your heart. But regular attendance in the Bhagavatam class is almost completely destroyed. Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of the theme of today's verses also. With Narada Muni, he's going to talk about how he heard from the Bhagavats, these great devotees, the Bhakti Vedantas, as Prabhupada calls them in his translation. Do you mind closing that window, Stacy? So yeah, that's the theme for today. Yeah, Narada Muni shares how he gained spiritual realization. And anyone know who Narada Muni's father is? Brahma. So yeah, he came from Lord Brahma. Does anyone remember how did he appear? Was it like Shiva came from his Mullah? Anyone? How did he appear? Is there a description of that? He just appeared. Yeah. No. Yes. Yeah. He just came. Disappeared. Okay. All right. So, but this is like before that in his previous life. So this is previous life before he was, as the transcendental Narada Muni in a body where he could go anywhere, spiritual world and material world, anywhere, and he can speak about Krishna, preach about Krishna anywhere. And that's his service, is to glorify Lord Vishnu or Krishna all over the universe, all over the universes. Yeah. Let's do the translations. Let's just go through the translations. If you want to start, go back and forth. You want to start tonight? 22. Oh, sorry. I can start. O Muni, in the last millennium, I was born as the son of a certain maid servant, engaged in the service of the Brahmanas, who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in their personal service. So yeah.
Although they were impartial by nature, those followers of the Vedanta blessed me with their costless mercy. As far as I was concerned, I was self-controlled and had no attachment for sports, even though I was a boy. In addition, I was not naughty, and I did not speak more than required.
Once only, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing, all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus, being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me.
O Vyasadeva, in that association and by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna. And thus, listening attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step.
O great sage, as soon as I got a taste of the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental.
Thus, during 2 seasons, the rainy season and autumn, I had the opportunity to hear these great-souled sages constantly chant the unadulterated glories of the Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished.
I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind.
As they were leaving, those Bhakti Vedantas, who are very kind to poor-hearted souls, instructed me in that most confidential subject which is instructed by the personality of Godhead himself.
By that confidential knowledge, I could understand clearly the influence of the energy of Lord Sri Krishna, the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything. By knowing that, one can return to him and personally meet him.
O Brahmana, Vyasadeva is decided by the learned that the best remedial measures for removing all troublesome and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna.
O good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing?
Thus, when all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which had caused his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of work.
Whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service to the Lord. And what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor.
While performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly presents his name and his qualities.
Let us all chant the glories of Vasudeva along with his plenary expansions Pradyumna, Anirudh, and Sankarshan.
Thus, he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound representation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, who has no material form.
O Brahmana, thus by the Supreme Lord Krishna, I was endowed first with the transcendental knowledge of the Lord as inculcated in the confidential parts of the Vedas, then with the spiritual opulences, and then with his intimate loving service.
Please, therefore, describe the Almighty Lord's activities which you have learned by your vast knowledge of the Vedas, for that will satisfy the hankerings of great learned men, and at the same time mitigate the miseries of the masses of common people who are always suffering from material pangs. Indeed, there is no other way to get out of such miseries.
Yeah, it's so amazing what Narada Muni is saying. It really struck to me how he says, a good soul does not a thing applied therapeutically cure disease which was caused by that very same thing. Anyone remember the example that Prabhupada gives for that verse? Like, what is it? A disease that's cured by the very same thing.
Like digestion.
Yeah, digestion. Yeah.
Like caused by eating too much. Bearing can be cured by
Eating too much paneer. Yeah, I think he says. I think he might even mention paneer. For example, milk preparation sometimes cause disorder of the bowels, but the very same milk converted into curd meaning yogurt, not the American curd, and mixed with some other remedial ingredients cures such disorders. So yeah, like milk or paneer, or heavier cheese might cause a lot of disorders, but then if you eat yogurt, it actually helps with curing that disorder. So same thing, yeah, Narada is saying that the same thing that can be poison for you if used differently. It's a little change. What's the difference between milk and yogurt? It's just merely some bacteria, And then just a little change can actually help you and make a whole difference. So for the same thing in us also, with us, like whatever we do, just a little change in our consciousness, and the same exact thing will deliver you back to God. When you kill somebody, there's a huge repercussion, right? When in the Bhagavad Gita, how there was in the Mahabharata, there was so much violence. There's so much repercussion. Prabhupada says that the Shastras say that one should be hung if somebody kills somebody. It should be capital punishment. Reason being that when somebody kills somebody, they'll get their karma back that they have to be now murdered, basically. So better to help them get rid of the karma by giving them capital punishment in this life. That's Prabhupada mentions on that topic, yes.
Does life in prison do the same thing, like karma-wise? Or not really? They'll still have to be murdered eventually?
Depends. I would have to philosophically speculate a bit right now. But I would say it depends on the person, really. It could be so many factors, and then of course it depends on the laws of nature. And then they might not get murdered in the next life, but normally, like in generally speaking, when somebody kills somebody, then they're also killed somehow or the other. But so same thing. Normally that is such a huge repercussion, one way or the other. Either prison life, or next life they're killed. But when Arjuna killed, in the battlefield, it was under the instructions of Krishna. It was actually for dharma, so for protection, for those various reasons. So, even such a heavy thing, when done under proper guidance and under correct motivation, it actually is liberating. And also, as a matter of fact, everybody who died on the battlefield was liberated because Krishna was present himself. The same thing for us, And there's so many things that are entangling in this world. Anything except the breaking the four regulated principles, you can do that. You can offer that to Krishna. So anything in this world, be a career, whatever else, even social media can be used for liberation. And when you use it for preaching Krishna consciousness. But how many find social media entangling? Anyone? Can be very entangling, right? You just keep scrolling, just keep looking. So many things going on, so many reels and shorts. Soon they'll start, social media anonymous. That is Narada Muni's point, that any activity can actually be used in a slightly different way, and it'll actually deliver you. And so he's talking about how he met these Bhakti Vedantas and he served them. He was just a child, but he had this realization, or he had this knowledge, like, if you serve these great personalities, one can perform great devotional service. So for us also, we want to keep that in mind. Nanda was telling me how when she was, somewhat newer in Krishna consciousness, or maybe not that new, but she was cooking. She used to cook in the Boston Temple surprise, and whenever great devotees would come, or sannyasis would come, and she would just jump on it. She would I'll also, some in the TP would ask who wants to serve more? She's like, me. And she would do that intentionally so that when they get their plate of prasadam and then they leave their remnants, comes back very clean, she'll take her remnants. That's how Nanda is who she is today. All that maha. But that's the mood, it's eager. And that was Narada Muni's mood. Very eager, these great personalities are here. And it was interesting because this next verse, Narada Muni is saying, whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service of the Lord. And what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. I had to ask them to look up what concomitant meant, but it just means like knowledge will just accompany. You know? So whatever work is done for the mission of the Lord, for preaching Krishna consciousness, that is bhakti yoga. And be it in a small way or a big way, it does not matter. Whatever is done to help our acharyas, our previous spiritual masters, in their mission and Krishna's mission, really, of bringing back these lost little jivas back to Godhead, that is bhakti yoga, and knowledge just comes along with it, and that's actually, that humble menial service of our spiritual masters, to Krishna, actually knowledge just comes along with it. There's that story of that Brahmana in South India. He was reading the Bhagavad Gita, but he was so illiterate that he would, read it upside down. And all the other Brahmanas, scholars, and whoever else in town, they would just look at him and just laugh at him and mock him. It's like, what a loser. Like, can't even hold the book straight. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw him and he asked, all these people are mocking you, and so why are and it's upside down. Why are you still reading? All these people making fun of you. So that Brahmana said, "Oh, my spiritual master has instructed me to read the Bhagavad Gita daily." I believe that was the instruction, right? Just read it daily. And then I believe Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, like, and why are you crying? You're not illiterate, you're not able to read, so like, what's making you cry? Because he would keep crying as he reads the Gita. And so he said that every time I pick up the Gita, I envision Krishna as Arjuna's chariot driver, as in this very humble and lowly position of a driver, because as a driver, like Arjuna in the battlefield, he would actually kick. They normally kick or like with toes, they would give directions to the driver, which way to go and so forth. So Arjuna would do that to Krishna. And so he said that when I see him doing that service to his own devotee, I just cry. And so at that point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed him that form of Partha Sarathi, the driver. The Sarathi, what's the English for Sarathi? Driver, I guess? Charioteer for Partha or Arjuna. So he showed that form to him. So, all those other fancy brahmanas, they didn't get to see that form. But this brahmana who gave his heart to Krishna, who was following his guru's instructions, who was, he actually was able, he was qualified to see Krishna in that way. But so Narada Muni is making that point that, for all of us, that as we serve our spiritual masters in different ways, especially in the mission of the Lord, then more and more Krishna will reveal himself to us. I've always noticed that my reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam is always the best when I'm like really, really engrossed in preaching. I've noticed that. I remember, at least it was a few times when I noticed it, but one time that I clearly remember was the Mexico bus tour. So the Mexico bus tour goes all over Mexico, and we wake up in a different city and we set up a festival every day. And it's just kirtan, we just out there preaching and doing kirtan, we do a play and we distribute books and so forth. My service was to make drinks and drinks and do books a little bit, for the poquito español I have. And then there would be a Harinam, and I would point at the Harinam, and then I would say, I would show the book and I say, Dios means God. And I would say, what's book in Spanish? Libre de Dios. And donación. This is a book on God, give a donation. And the Mexicans were so pious, they're just so sweet. They'll just look at us, they're in my broken Spanish, and they'll just give me a donation. This one time there was this older man wheeling his wife on a wheelchair, and they kind of almost look like beggars. But I saw them, I approached them, I asked them for a donation, I gave them a book. They actually gave a donation, And other devotees were like, we thought they were beggars, we thought they were going to ask us for money. He sold them a book. But they're just so pious, they just naturally give a donation when they see somebody is a monk or is preaching about God. But the point being, so when we were doing that, I remember reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. I would try to read it every night. And even though I was in a bus with 30 teenagers we're staying up at night after 9 p.m., not letting me go to bed. And then there was also a young couple that was rather distracting in the bus. And even though all that was going on in the bus, but I was reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it was nectar. That was like probably the best time I ever read the Srimad Bhagavatam, just by making juice and some broken Spanish book distribution. At one time, I remember Narada, Mamaram's wife, we would just take whatever donation. They would give us 10 pesos. 10 pesos is like, that's not even $1. 13 pesos used to be $1. So we just take 10 pesos, 20 pesos, and give them a book. And Narada was like, 10 pesos is not even $1. Just keep that in mind when you give them a Bhagavad Gita. I was like, oh yeah, sorry. That's how it always worked out. When the real book distributors came out with the book table, they got more donations. So I was able to do my little, side change, book distribution. But yeah, it was just so much nectar, and making the juice, it was just blissful, and making juice was another ordeal. Anyways, I won't go into that. But one time, I'll tell you one story. One time, I was all geared. This was my second time on the Mexico tour, and I was trained how to make juice for 300 people in a running bus, with in a pot or whatever. I was like, whatever you give me, I'll make the juice. And so I was ready. I was in the bus, and their festival was going on like a few miles away, and they sent a van to bring me with the juice or the ingredients. And I was like, I'm gonna get there, I'll have everything ready, I'll make the juice. I got there, I made the juice. I got there, I didn't even look left, right, took the big pot, the sugar, the whatever ingredients. I made the juice in like 5 minutes. And I was like whisking this huge pot of juice, and as soon as I stopped whisking, boing, one drop of rain. It starts raining, everybody's like gone, and then I'm sitting there with juice for 200 people. And then I just remember thinking like, Krishna, and then I just remember thinking, we can make an effort, but it all depends on Krishna, who gets the nectar and who does not. But they already had the festival. The juice was the prasadam was the end part. But for the next 2 days we drank that juice in the bus. But yeah, it's all very blissful. In a sense, we do preaching. Of course, we do it for others. We do it also for our spiritual master. But in a sense, we really do preaching for ourselves, because it really cleans our heart, really purifies our heart. Kalakankura often calls book distribution as industrial level cleaning of the heart. So yeah, book distribution or any sort of preaching, whenever you reach out to somebody, whenever you go out of your way, whenever you do that sacrifice. It's a yajna. Yajna means sacrifice. So any kind of sacrifice one makes, and yajna doesn't just mean fire. Yajna means actually sacrifice. So when you sacrifice your energy, when you just really go out of your way to help somebody in their life, especially in the spiritual life, then it's a yajna. And the blessing of the yajna, the demigods, and of course Krishna, Supreme Person, is happy. That's the only way to make Krishna happy, is sacrifice by yajna. So preaching is the highest yajna. That's the yajna for this age. When we just reach out to that poor gator student who's troubled in their life or whatever it is, and they might not even know. They might just be happy drinking beer on Saturday nights. But we know you are suffering. Here's a flyer. Eat some tacos. Be happy. Whatever. Eat some prasadam on Friday night. We have paneer. Ahimsa paneer. You don't even know what ahimsa paneer is, but you'll be happier. So Krishna Kripa used to preach, on the campus, and this one student said, "I'm good." And Krishna Kripa goes, "You could be better." It's a true statement. If you don't know Krishna Kripa, he is like this. He is actually like our modern day Narada Muni. He goes back and forth the whole world, well, pretty much, from US to India, right? And back and forth every year. Was that true? France to It's Florida. Yes, goes so many places. He has a but you never know when he's gonna pop up, right? Like Narada Muni in the past times. So yeah, that enthusiasm, and he has so much taste for the holy name. He has so much taste for outreach, for just going out for higher alms and so forth, and he appreciates other devotees. I remember he went on the Mexico bus tour with me actually that year, 2010. He was 50, I was 19, but he had a blast. It was austere for him, but he had a blast. But yeah, let's go do the verse, huh? All right. Aham purati. Wait, is that a meter? Or is it? Yeah. Aham puratita bhave bhavam mune. Dasya stikasya chana vedavadina. Nirupito balaka eva yogina. Shushrusane pravrishinir vivikshatam. Please chant.
Aham puratita bhave bhavam mune.
Aham puratita bhave bhavam mune.
Dasyastikasyaschana vedavadina.
Dasyastikasyaschana vedavadina.
Nirupito balaka eva yogina.
Nirupito balaka eva yogina.
Shushrusane pravrishinir vivikshatam.
Shushrusane pravrishinir vivikshatam. Aham puratita bhave bhavam mune. Dasya sukasya chana vedavadina. Nirupita balaka eva yogina. Shushrusane pravrishinir vivikshatam. Aham puratita bhave bhavam mune. Dasya sukasya chana vedavadina. Nirupita balaka eva yogina. Shushrusane pravrishinir vivikshatam. Aham puratita bhave bhavam mune. Dasya sukasya chana vedavadina. Nirupita balaka eva yogina. Shushrusane pravrishinir vivikshatam. Let's do the translation together. O Muni, in the last millennium, I was born as the son of a certain maidservant, engaged in the service of Brahmanas who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in a personal service. The wonder of an atmosphere surcharged with devotion service to the Lord is briefly described herein by Sri Narada Muni. He was a son of the most insignificant parentage. He was not properly educated. Still, because his complete energy was engaged in the service of the Lord, he became an immortal sage. Such is the powerful action of devotional service. The living entities are the marginal energy of the Lord, and therefore they are meant for being properly utilized in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. When this is not done, one's situation is called Maya. Therefore, the illusion of Maya is at once dissipated as one's full energy is converted in the service of the Lord instead of in sense enjoyment. From the personal example of Sri Narada Muni in his previous birth, it is clear that the service of the Lord begins with the service of the Lord's bona fide servants. The Lord says that the service of his servants is greater than his own personal service. Service of the devotee is more valuable than the service of the Lord himself. One should therefore choose a bona fide servant of the Lord, constantly engaged in his service. Accept such a servant as a spiritual master and engage himself in the spiritual master's service. Such a spiritual master is a transparent medium by which to visualize the Lord, who is beyond the conception of the material senses. By service of the bona fide spiritual master, the Lord consents to reveal himself in proportion to the service rendered. Utilization of the human energy in the service of the Lord is the progressive path of salvation. The whole cosmic creation becomes at once identical with the Lord as soon as service in relation with the Lord is rendered under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. The expert spiritual master knows the art of utilizing everything to glorify the Lord, and therefore, under his guidance, the whole world can be turned into the spiritual abode by the divine grace of the Lord's servant. Srila Prabhupada ki. And as Prabhupada's writing, an Acharya preaches by example as well. So as he's writing this, he's actually serving his spiritual master, his desire for having books in English, and especially then having them distributed in the West. But yeah, and in the later verses, anyone remember what Narada Muni said? What is it that removes our miseries in this world? What is it directly? Staying in service to the Lord, I believe that was the one, right? Rest of it, I'm gonna find it. But yeah, and what's the sure shot way to remove anxiety? Who wants to get rid of anxiety in their life? Everyone else wants anxiety, but don't want anxiety. But yeah, it's like you want to get rid of anxiety, right? And it's almost impossible to get rid of anxiety in this world. And the only possible way to get rid of anxiety is to dovetail it in Christian service. And that's the only thing you can do. There's no way in this world. Actually, Vaikuntha, it's a place without anxiety, right? But even there is anxiety, but it's transcendental anxiety. The Vaikuntha, there is no dust. You don't have to, you don't have to do 4 hours of service, out of which 1 hour is to clean Krishna house or whatever. Clean the temple, clean the temple after lunch. But even then, it's described that the goddess of fortune, she keeps cleaning the floor, the walls, and it's like, well, firstly, she's the goddess of fortune, and secondly, there is no dust in Vaikuntha. So the question is, why does she keep doing it? Because she's anxious for service. She's anxious for service, And so anxiety is there. Even in the Goloka Vrindavan, the Gopas, and there's anxiety that the rumors, the demons are coming. Demons are going to be here. And they have anxiety, and they look to Krishna. This demon's going to come. Krishna, don't worry. Of course, the demon never comes. But but then anxiety is there. The same thing in this world also. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that I have these fruits. There's so much burden I have these juicy, delicious fruits of Krishna consciousness, and I'm the only gardener. How am I going to share this with others? So he says he asks for help. So when we take on Lord Chaitanya's burden, we take on his anxiety sharing Krishna with others. Then he takes our material anxiety. Whatever it is, we have so many anxieties in this life, It could range from, something very simple, what was it yesterday? Said the back hurts. If the AC works, the back, the back hurts. There's so many anxiety in this world. Fly comes in your mouth during Bhagavatam class, and then they just convert it into anxiety for Krishna. So there'll always be something. So when we take on this burden from Lord Chaitanya, then he takes our own burdens. Simple things from my back hurts to like, what am I going to do in my life or career? I need my money. How am I going to retire? How am I going to get my kids married? My father has all that anxiety. But so there's all these anxieties. But yes, when we take Lord Chaitanya's anxiety, in a sense, Prabhupada says it in one of the purports in Third Canto. He says that just how you forget Krishna We just don't think of Krishna, right? You don't think of Krishna, you forget Krishna, but you always think of your threefold miseries. Yeah. Always, like, oh my God, this is going wrong, that's going on, unending. But you just keep thinking that, right? So just like you do that, there comes a point in one's spiritual life when you simply remember Krishna and you just forget the material miseries. So when you take that anxiety for Krishna, for Lord Chaitanya to preach Krishna consciousness, then your anxiety they might still be there. It's always going to be there. So bad news. It's always going to be there, but it's like a whole different perspective though. It just kind of evaporates. Our main anxiety turns into like, how do we share Krishna with others? If you see devotees who are, you see Adhikartapur on campus, anxious to meet that next person, he goes to so many students, so many, he goes to so many of them, and then he finds one boa, he finds one. Did he talk to you also, Kiara? Adhikarta? Was that? Indirectly, yeah. So it's always, we go to so many people, we do prasadam distribution with 1,000 people, and after them, so many few might be interested in any of the programs. And after those, one might actually come. And out of that, one might actually come and hear to what we're saying. Out of that, one might actually think about it. Out of that, one might think, oh, maybe I could live here. Like so, you go down, it's a numbers game. It's true, Krishna says it too in the Gita. So we just gotta try our best to reach out as much as we can. And out of so many, there'll be select few might show some interest. And it's true what Prabhupada said in Gainesville. When you sell diamonds, you don't get many customers. It's a rare thing. It's the most rare thing actually. It's the most rare thing in the whole creation. So not just in Gainesville, not just in America, not in the world, not in the universe. The whole creation is the rarest thing to come in touch with devotees and to be on the path to develop love of God. And love of God is no cheap thing. There's that story of Sanatana Goswami, and there's one guy came, and he was really wanted wealth. And so he was serving Sanatana Goswami, he asked for material blessings. And then Sanatana Goswami said, over there, on the heap of trash, there's this stone, and if you use that to touch whatever, it'll become gold. Oh, he said, right. And then, so he took it, starts touching everything. and then he's like, wait a minute. If he had that in the heap of trash, he must have something better. He goes back and was like, oh, Sadhu, do you have something else that's high? This was in trash, so what else do you have? Any other boons? So he said, are you sure? Because if I give you that, then you're gonna let go of this stone, this touchstone. And he said, yes. So it's a holy name, it's the name, the Naam, the Krishna Naam, he gave him that and he started chanting, gave up his eyes. Another version of the story I've heard where a person gets that stone and he had 1 week to return that stone, and he was so anxious and he was getting a lot of things to convert into gold. So he was collecting that first, and then he collected, and then 1 week got over just in doing that. And then the sadhu came and said, 1 week stone? And the guy said, no, wait, I just gotta touch it. I gotta touch all this waste, the iron, whatever he collected. And he's like, no, 1 week. So it's like, that's our material life. We collect so much, we collect so many things. The human form of life is just gone at the end. But that's the touchstone of Krishna consciousness. Any way or form, anyone can get in touch with Krishna, be it through prasadam, be it through the holy name, be it through a class, be it through anything, Anyone remember what Prabhupada said? I think Prabhupada asked the question himself, or maybe the disciples asked, this is towards the end when he was leaving his body, that how will ISKCON continue after you have left the planet, after Prabhupada's left the planet? What did he say? It's another one, different one. Anyone remember? How will ISKCON continue after Prabhupada leaves this planet? Like what? Well, there's that too, but he said something else. What else? Yes, he said organization and intelligence. So those two words. And you know, of course, we value devotees and we value the emotions and the hearts and relationships. But yes, you know, you need organization. Prabhupada said that, and he said that that's important. Organization and intelligence. And Prabhupada, I think Prabhupada was right in one of the verses he said, or maybe a letter, he said you have to tax your brains. It's tax your brains. You know, we have in this material world, there's so much energy. People tax their brains how to make money, how to find a perfect spouse. You know, like there's so many things you can tax your brains for. But when you tax your brains how to share Krishna with others, you get rid of the shackles of material birth and death. Now that's what you get. That's the reward. And then finally, it doesn't look very concrete right now. Like, yeah, sure, you know, say it in the books. Okay, okay. But you know, we'll do it. You know. But it is actually such a big deal, and that's why the service of the spiritual master of a guru is so highly venerable, you know. And not just like initiating spiritual masters, but all of you, each one of you. Prabhupada said everybody is a guru just by sharing Krishna with others, because they have that realization. You have that realization that yes, this will end all their miseries. Everybody is running to end their miseries. They try to do it through money, they try to do it through sex, they try to do it through ending disease, whatever else it is. That's what everybody is trying to do. And the word of the Bhagavatam is that you have to end it by ending the cycle of birth and death. That is really solving the problem. So a person who realizes that to whatever degree and helps people in that direction, that person, that's why the spiritual master is so, you know, so worthy of veneration. That's why, I mean, to represent God is no ordinary thing. To represent a country is no ordinary thing in this world. When you're a diplomat, you know, you get your fancy passport, you know, you don't have to be in the long lines. So even just to be a diplomat of some country is a big thing. So what we talk of being a diplomat of God, it's actually a huge thing. So all of you are diplomats of Krishna, of God, you know, his emissaries, who go out and share Krishna one way or the other. And you know, just any service, anything, and as we go through our lives, you'll go through so many different phases. But if we have that intention, like, what can I do? You know, what one thing can I do to support the mission? Yes, Narada himself is saying, whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called bhakti yoga, and what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. Like, what can I do? One little thing. Of course, if you can do more, do more. Don't be like, oh, I did one little thing. But whatever you can do, just do it. Just do it. It will save you from the most hellish existence. That is the one thing that can save you. That will give you the grace of the spiritual masters, you know, because they're so gracious. Their hearts is so big that they remember. You know, there's so many stories where Prabhupada's, you know, some of his disciples fell away, but in the end, like, some of them met devotees. And there's that one famous story when he was a sannyasi, he had a fall down, and then he had a heavy fall down, and then, you know, he actually became a Satan worshiper, actually, as a matter of fact. He worshipped Satan, and he had a girlfriend. Satan, satanic. And then he had a girlfriend, you know, and he was older at this time. Towards the end, he had a young girlfriend, another satanic worshiper, and then he was dying of AIDS, I believe, or some disease, maybe dying. But and then his girlfriend told the devotees later that when he was dying, like towards the end, he just got up one day and then he said, "Oh, Prabhupada, you are here." So even for somebody like that, you know, Prabhupada comes. So what we talk of other devotees who have dedicated their lives of sharing Krishna consciousness. And that is our saving grace, really, you know. When we do that, Krishna really, the spiritual masters really give their blessings and really cleans our heart and so forth. And that's what Narada Muni does. And as a matter of fact, the Bhagavatam, in a sense, is Vyasadeva glorifying his spiritual master. The whole Bhagavatam, you know, we see Narada Muni coming again and again. So we keep that mood, that how do we glorify our spiritual masters? And by our service, by our actions, we'll glorify, like, oh, this is such a great disciple of such and such spiritual master. It's such a great follower of the Prabhupada, he or she's preaching so much or doing such service, or whatever we can do at our different stages, be it actually helping, preaching, or just anything, cleaning, cooking, anything, giving a donation, whatever it is, do something. Do something for Srila Prabhupada. Whatever it is at different stages. Yeah. Anyways, we'll end here. Any thoughts or comments before breakfast comes out? Oh, sorry. I'll go up here and meet, and then Prabhu back there, Jonathan.
I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this, but I think after your class, I'm sure. But I'd like to go out to campus tonight at 7 and just set up the book table in front of the library. If anyone wants to join, I'll make a post as well. But I really want to do that. Or even, but this is a little bit last minute, but I just thought maybe we could go to a student's place and do kirtan with them at 7.
Yeah.
So just keep an eye out for messages on the residence chat. If anyone wants to join, just have some fun. We can also, if we go to the plaza, we can also just do some kirtan and just read books and meet people and hang out with them.
All right. Hari. We go to Raul's apartment. Tell him, and we go and share his wisdom. Meet.
I was just reflecting on this. Srila Prabhupada emphasized so much on association. And Narad Muni is such an interesting personality. Whoever came in contact with Narad Muni attained Krishna. Like Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Brigari, all of them. So that is very much related to the power of association and like such a high class association they have been getting. So I was just reflecting when we were giving that class.
That's true. Everybody came in touch with Narada Muni. Yeah, they made the advancement. Yeah. Even comes.
Yeah, so actually on that, did Narada Muni ever preach in hellish planets?
It's a good question. Did he ever have any pastimes where he went to the hellish planets? He went to demons for sure, all kinds. Not sure. Yeah, but he travels everywhere. I'm not sure. Yeah. All right, stop here then. Narada Muni ki Kantasha Bhakti. Yagya Shishta Sinasanto Chente Sarvakya